Maguchi fam?
We're good?
Or nah?
So, Mike, you're not in this episode? No. All right, bye, dude.
All right, good. We don't need you anymore.
Wait, where's our video?
What?
Is our video up?
Yeah. What?
Bro, we've never done this with other scientists. We
Yeah,
don't
we
fucking
don't-
know.
Everything's good.
We don't even have a degree. How are we gonna do this episode without you?
Yeah, bro.
No, the wicked smart glasses.
Oh, bro, fuck. We don't even need you anymore. All we needed was the glasses.
Well, I'm getting lightheaded. I feel like a scientist. All right. Well, yeah. So in this edition of the worst start of all time to the episode, we're gonna be doing the waiver wire episode.
Yeah, so this is 2/3 of the average bros minus the scientist.
Yeah. So now we're just average bro.
Just
Bzz.
average cousins.
All right, so what we're gonna do is this is our first like actual waiver wire episode. So we're gonna try and go over players that are on your waiver wire or that might possibly be on your waiver wire that we think you guys should pick up.
Yeah. So for me, like I said, most of our leagues, like we play with some pretty good people that kind of know what they're doing. But I mean, I guess not everyone knows what they're doing. So the number one waiver priority for me would be TJ Yeldon. He's in there. He's available in like 55% of leagues. Fournette's hurt. He's got the hamstring injury. They said he's out indefinitely. So, I mean, you're looking at multiple weeks here. Yeldon's the guy. They're going to throw him in. He's going to be the starting running back on a good team with a good defense. He runs the ball. He gets the goal line work. He catches. If I had the number one priority, I'd be definitely trying to get TJ Yeldon.
Yeah, that was a lot of goodness right there. That's all I heard was good things. Yeah, TJ Yeldon. He's used like Fournette is used if Fournette is not out there. So I believe there's no timetable for him to return, right? For Fournette.
Yes, it's just
Yeah, and if you're the Fournette owner, like go ahead and spend some fab on Yeldon. This could be a 2-week absent, maybe it's a 4-week, but getting Yeldon, you're basically securing yourself for having a piece of what Fournette is or was. And if Yeldon's there, go ahead and get him.
Yeah, that would be my number one priority. So I mean, typically in most waiver things, I try to highlight players that are available. I think it's 50% or more leagues.
Yeah.
Where we're not going to be like that. We're just looking at players that are still available in leagues that are that are there. So if they're there, go get them. I mean, there's some of these players that are available in like 30%, 40%. You know what I'm saying? So just keep an eye out for some of these players.
We'll keep with the running backs.
Yeah.
Naheem Hines, he's someone we talked about in the matchups. He's a running back who, Indianapolis isn't running the ball very well, but Andrew Luck is dropping back, and this is the second game where he's thrown it over 55 times. I know that. Hines he had 9 receptions last week. He had 2 touchdowns. He's kind of this Indianapolis Colts coordinator came from Philly, and he's kind of being used in the Darren Sproles role. So he's someone where if they struggle to run and have no running game, Hines is going to be someone that's going to see the ball, maybe 5 to 10 targets a game. Kind of think of like what Duke Johnson was last year, possibly.
Yeah, he actually has 5 or more catches in 3 of the 4 games, 7.5 PPR points in each game this year. So his floor is 7.5 in PPR leagues. That's Naheem Hines there. So yeah, he's a guy you can go grab too.
Yeah. The second running back we're going to talk about is Duke Johnson. Duke Johnson is someone where my laptop just died.
Yeah. So Duke Johnson, he was borderline RB1 last year. I think he finished like RB11, RB12 last year. I drafted him in a couple leagues. The first 3 weeks, he wasn't really doing pretty good. He had like 3 points, 5 points, 3 points, something like that. Nothing good. So Baker Mayfield comes in. This is the first game where they actually used him. He had 4 catches for 45 yards, a couple plays, a couple red zone, 2-point conversions. He's their pass catching running back. Hyde's not really a pass catching running back. Chubb's, just a bruiser kind of running back. Maybe with Baker in the lineup now, Duke Johnson's someone that they lean on more usage for him. So he's available in a ton of leagues. So he's definitely be someone I'd go grab too.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in any full PPR league, those backs who get you 4, like the Hines, the Johnsons, those guys who are getting you 5 catches in a week, they have a relatively safe like RB2 floor. Like the bye weeks are going to start hitting. You're going to have maybe 3-4 players on a bye in a given week. He's a good guy to have. These are 2 running backs where, if you see the target share there for them, they're going to be a weekly plug-in and, put in for an RB2. Who do you have next on the list? This
is from fantasypros.com. So they have Mike Davis here as the second running back behind Naheem Hines. I'm not sold on this. I mean, they still have Rashad Penny. I know he didn't get any work, but he's still there. And then Chris Carson is still there too. So Chris Carson was a surprise inactive, and I think a lot of people thought this was going to be the Rashad Penny show. Finally, he's going to get the opportunity to show what he's about. Definitely not. Mike Davis gets like, I don't know, 20-something carries. Like, I don't even know. I think he had 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, he had a pretty big game. He had 20-plus carries. I know Pete Carroll came out and said today, I just read that this is going to be a committee and a hot hand approach. So I don't see this as a team that's going to be very good running the ball. So they do want to run the ball. So if it's going to be a committee and you figure, 10 carries here, 10 carries for that guy, another 5 for this guy, I think it's going to be hard to find any kind of upside with the running backs if it's a carousel. But Chris Carson's the one I would own. Rashad Penny they drafted. I think Mike Davis is just happened to have a good week. Maybe the teams weren't, oh, this guy's in the field, not taking him seriously. Kind of, that happens sometimes where it's, someone comes in, it's a change of pace guy. The teams aren't really game planning for Mike Davis. They're game planning for Russell Wilson and Doug Baldwin. So.
Yeah. So, Mike Davis, I wouldn't even be paying attention to him. Like I said, I think Chris Carson's the main guy. He's there. If someone in your league happened to drop him because he's inactive and they were trying to grab someone else to throw in their running back or flex spot that week, I'd actually try to get Chris Carson, not Mike Davis. So they got Ronald Jones, the second on here. I don't know. I mean, how do you feel about that?
I mean, I think if you have a deeper bench, I think he's an okay ad. But you're coming on a bye week, so I think he's someone to where if he's in your waiver wire, you don't really even need to add him until maybe later in the week. He had I think he had 10+ carries, but it was still 2.9 yards per carry. Peyton Barber had his carries and he was under 3 yards a carry. I just think this Bucs running game and their run blocking is not very well. So not very good.
Yeah.
So even for Ronald Jones to see a bulk of the carries, I think it's going to take some time. So I think he's a guy where you're going to need to stash him. I don't think you're going to see him break out and get a bulk of the carries right away. He's almost like how Carry on Aaron Jones and Sony Michel, where it took 3-4 weeks to start the year to be relevant. Now you're looking at a timetable where he just got active, so it might be 3-4 weeks before he's even relevant. So if you have space and you want to stash him, I'm not against it, but I think the chances of him hitting are small. But I mean, Peyton Barber was getting a lot of work, so if he can take that job, I mean, he'll get a lot of work, but it's just a struggling offense and running game. So
yeah, maybe a stash. Me personally, I don't want him on my team. That defense is terrible. They're going to be playing from behind a ton of games, which is not the type of game script you want for a running back. The running back, they're not going to get the ball 20 times a game. You know what I'm saying? Especially if it's Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones. They're going to be splitting. They're going to be behind. Ronald Jones, obviously not a very good pass catching running back either. Like, I think in preseason he was like 0 for 3 in targets or something like that. I don't even know.
Yeah, he was having balls just like hit him in the face.
Yeah, dodgeball. You're out. So he's out of my lineup.
He made Jordan Howard look like Calvin Johnson out there.
Yeah, so I wouldn't even pay attention to him. So a big name, a lot of people might just jump to the waiver wire and say, oh, let me grab Nick Chubb. He had 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. Oh, let me get Nick Chubb. But he only had 3 carries. Yeah. 2 of those just happened to be like a 40-yard touchdown run and then like a 60-yard touchdown run. He's someone that I wouldn't necessarily pay attention to either. I mean, maybe he's a stash, but when are you realistically going to throw Chubb into your lineup? He had 3 carries.
I think he's just a handcuff at this point. If you do have deep benches, Chubb has showed some explosiveness where Carlos Hyde hasn't shown any explosiveness. So if something were to happen, Chubb could end up taking Hyde's role, and Hyde actually leads the league in carries, rushing attempts right now. So Chubb's someone where he's more of a handcuff at this point. He's showing that explosiveness, which you like to see. If you're in a dynasty league, you got to like what you see out of Chubb so far. But as far as someone you're going to pick up, and like Tyler said, you're not going to pick up and start him. You're basically just hoping on a Hyde injury. Maybe if you're a Hyde owner, go out there and grab Chubb in case anything happens to Hyde. You have him as a backup.
For sure. So that's kind of some of the main pickups from fantasypros.com. I was just looking at the own percentage of running backs right now on the ESPN leagues. So these are some players that, they're owned in a good amount of leagues. So the Fantasy Pros isn't going to go over them because they should be owned, but they're owned in a lot of leagues. So Aaron Jones, available in 45% of leagues. Need to go get him. If he's out there, you need to go get him. Buck Allen out there in 40% of leagues. Go get him. Kerryon Johnson available in 25% of leagues. Go get him. You got Sony Michel and James White available in 18% of leagues each. Go get him. Phillip Lindsay available in 18 to 20% of leagues. Go get him. Just for some reason, if these guys are available, you got Chris Thompson available in like 15% of leagues. If he's there, go get him. Just keep an eye for these players.
Yeah, you always look at your waiver wire. Sometimes people will try and drop players and sneak them through on a Saturday, Sunday. So there might be some names you didn't expect to be there that are there for this week. We'll move over to the wide receiver position. They have Kiki Cutie as the number 1 wide receiver ad this week. If with Will Fuller's out this week, he could be a nice wide receiver 2 flex play this week. Without Will Fuller hurt, he's not someone I want to throw in right away, with only seeing him healthy for 1 week. But, I think his value is going to be tied to Will Fuller right now. If Will Fuller's out for a few weeks, I think he's going to have some weekly value. If Will Fuller's back this week, then he's more of like a desperation, like wide receiver type of 3 right now from what we've seen so far.
Yeah, he'd be like if I had a really deep bench, then I would maybe stash him. Dynasty, yeah, for sure you're going to grab him if you didn't already draft him, that is. But, yeah, it's kind of tied, like you said, to Will Fuller being hurt. Because if Will Fuller's there, then I think he takes a lot of things. I mean, it's crazy, though, because Kiki Cutie had 15 targets, 11 receptions, over 100 yards. So they were using him a ton, and I was watching some of the highlights from him. They were moving him all around the field, like jet sweeps, motions, like bubble screens, like all kinds of things. So they really like this kid, see what he does.
I mean, he's a blazer, too. I know
yeah.
he's really fast, so it's... he adds Will Fuller's a blazer, too. I mean, this offense is going to have some speed for Deshaun Watson. I think him showing up just makes Deshaun Watson owners who were a little like, dang, did I make the right choice? It gives his ceiling more potential to hit on a weekly basis.
Yeah. So again, according to fantasypros.com, they have who is that?
Tyrod Taylor.
Tyrod Taylor. So yeah. So Tyrod Taylor is a guy who I touched on in the last episode for the matchup breakdown because I said no more Rashad Matthews, Delaney Walker's out. He gone. Corey Davis, I mean, he's getting 33% of the targets, but I mean, the ball's got to go elsewhere. So Tyrod Taylor, his snaps have gone up every single week. And I think it's gone from like 15% to like 30% to 50% to like 67% this last week. So he's getting more and more run every week. This last game, he was 7 catches for 77 yards, 9 targets. He would be my number 1 wide receiver if I was going to rank him out.
Yeah, I'd probably go with Taywan over QT myself. That's more of a season-long thing, too. I think QT might have a better outlook right away if Fuller's out. But with Taywan, it's Corey Davis, and to expect him to get 35 to 40% of the targets, that's going to be that's going to be like almost record-setting if he keeps doing that. So they're going to throw the ball elsewhere. Mariota looks to be healthy, looks to be back. And he might be like he's going to be the number 2 in this offense, but like I've stated, this is a year where quarterbacks are throwing for an astronomical amount of attempts and yards. So, don't be afraid to start at number 2 in an offense. And I think he's someone who, 2 flex leagues, he could be, sneaky play on a given week. If Corey Davis has a tough matchup, say Corey Davis is going against a top flight corner, Taiwan might be a sneaky play in those matchups.
For sure. All right, so they have Ryan Grant on here as another possible waiver pickup. 2 of the 4 games, I think he's had some good games. T.Y. Hilton's banged up. Not sure if he plays or not. Me picking up Ryan Grant would be based on if T.Y. was playing or not. If T.Y.'s out, then maybe I'll go get Ryan Grant and take a flyer on him, especially in a game where they're playing the Patriots on a short week. They should be behind. Luck's probably going to have to throw the ball again 40 to 50 times. If there's no T.Y., I mean, I could see Ryan Grant as a dart throw, flex play this week.
Yeah, he's kind of more of, like you said, he's tied to T.Y. because, Luck looks at the tight ends a lot. He looks at the running backs a lot. T.Y. is going to see his 10 targets a game. So he's kind of tied. But if there's no Hilton, I think he's going to be a volume play, desperation type of flex with maybe some upside. But if Hilton's there, even in this matchup, I don't know if I'd feel comfortable starting Ryan Grant in this matchup.
Yeah.
So next we got D.D. Westbrook. It just seems that Jacksonville has a little bit of like a receiver carousel. We did point out that, he had a really great matchup and Clean Cole had a tough matchup. But week to week, Bortles can be so up and down that I think it's going to be hard to, predict what receiver is going to go off in a given week, or who's going to be the heavy targets. Because sometimes they have a good defense. They do even run the ball a ton. So, I think he's a speculative ad where you can pick him up and see what happens, but I wouldn't be picking him up and playing him right away.
Yeah, I mean, I like Dede. He's at 10 plus PPR for PPR leagues, 10 plus points in 3 of the 4 games. So I think Moncrief's just kind of a guy. Yeah, he had a big game, but it was like a 70-yard touchdown. If you take that away, he didn't really have a good game. Cole's the one, obviously, but now when you're playing other teams that have like better corners to cover that one, I think that's where Cole's going to struggle, and maybe that's where they use D.D. Westbrook as a slot, moving around the field and stuff like that. So just keep an eye on him.
All right, and then we'll go to the next number 5, Mohamed Sanu. I mean, it's the who are they? The Falcons. We've stated before in the podcast that some teams can, the way it's looking this year, have 3 relevant receivers, and it's looking like the Falcons might be one of those teams because their defense is so bad. Ryan's thrown for a ton of yards. Sooooo went over 100 yards last game. He's on the field actually more than Calvin Ridley is snap wise. I think he's someone you grab, and then when you predict a shootout game, like, hey, let's take a shot in a high upside guy. Maybe they're playing the Saints that week, and Lattimore's against the outside guys, and leaving Sooooo for maybe he has a 7 in 100 game like he did last week. So I think he's a high upside guy where you can hold and with the right matchup and bye weeks play.
For sure, yeah. That Falcons defense is terrible. So when we were talking about it, Matt Ryan's going to be throwing the ball a ton. So, yeah, I want some of those pass catchers. So, again, I'm just looking at some of these players, their ownership in the leagues. And some of these numbers are just I'm just crazy. Like, how are these players not owned in more leagues? I mean, I guess if you're playing like an 8-man league, a 10-man league, maybe. But Geronimo Allison, he's available in 55% of leagues. So you got Mike Williams available in 47% of leagues. Go grab him. John Brown, who's had 12-plus fantasy points, I think, in every single game. Available, 37% of leagues. Anua, who's got 30% target share from the Jets offense, of 37% available. Tyler Boyd, who's just been, he's been balling out, playing super good across from A.J. Green. He's available in 35% of leagues. So, I'm surprised this one. Corey Davis, he's available in 25% of leagues. Sterling Shepard, available in 25% of leagues. Like, it just blows my mind how some of these players aren't like 100% owned. So just keep an eye out for these players. Jump the gun. Check your waiver wire.
Yeah. So we'll move on. Another guy too is how do you say his name? Marquez Valdez Scatling, or say it right?
Yeah, Marquez Valdez Scatling. We need to come up with like an MVS.
Yeah, MVS.
MVS or something. No, we need to.
So check MVS. Like you don't necessarily need to pick him up like off this week, but if Cobb wasn't even close to playing last week apparently, and if Geronimo Allison's out with a concussion, he's tied to Aaron Rodgers, and we've said over and over in the podcast, is the number 2 for Aaron Rodgers has value. Geronimo Allison, I think, has been double-digit points in every week, right?
Geronimo Allison, yeah, double digits every single week.
Yeah, so if someone's got to step in and fill that role, and if they're both out, he could be a sneaky play this week.
Yeah, Scantling is like 6'4", he ran like a 4.40, tall, like lanky guy. Think of maybe like a Michael Thomas type of body frame. So yeah, if he's out there, and Allison and Cobbs are definitely a guy to look into.
And then we'll move on to the tight end position. Cameron Brate. He's just Jameis Winston's boy. They just have a chemistry over the years that he looks for him, especially in the red zone. He had a touchdown last week with Jameis.
He's had 2 touchdowns in back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, and with O.J. Howard to be out for 2 to 4 weeks, if you need like a He's on a bye week, so you might be able to get him without, not even having a high waiver or not spending a lot of fab, because some people don't even know that O.J. Howard is really out for 2 to 4 weeks yet, unless they're an O.J. Howard owner. So he's someone where he's a tight end stash, and when he comes back, you can feel comfortable because that defense is terrible, and they're just throwing the ball a ton over there. Number 2, Vance McDonald. It seems that, after 2 weeks, him being on the field, Roethlisberger's looking for him. He's getting targets, he's getting volume. The landscape and tight end it gets ugly, and what you want is a guy tied to a Hall of Fame quarterback, high powered offense, and it's going to see a lot of opportunity to even score touchdowns. So, I would add him. You can do worse at tight end for sure.
Yeah, I think he's had 5+ targets every single game since he's been back. So I mean, they're looking for him. I mean, in tight end, it's so rough. I mean, if I'm going to get at least I know I'm getting 5 targets every single game with that red zone upside with him and a good offense, like you just said. Good tight end right there to pick up if you're struggling at tight end position.
Yeah, and the next tight end we'll move on to is it just my phone froze.
The next one I have up here is so Eifert, guy can never stay healthy. Gruesome injury. I just saw it for the first time.
It's nasty.
Yeah, his ankle's basically just hanging on by like the skin. So he's going to be out for the year. There's no way that guy comes back. Insert Tyler Tomb Croft Raider or whatever, the Tomb Raider.
Yeah, I mean he was a usable tight end last year when Eifert wasn't there. He had some good games. I think he's find the matchup where the Bengals might be in a little bit of a shootout. When the Bengals play the Steelers, he's a good start probably in weeks like that. Maybe good tight end matchups. I think defenses are going to start noticing. Tyler, your boy. and AJ Green. They're gonna have to pay attention to those guys. So I mean, Eifert was doing well the last few games. He was getting targets. You know, he had a touchdown. So I think he's a playable tight end. You know, he's someone you pick up, and like I said, sometimes you might have to play the matchups with tight ends. And when he has some, you know, potential high scoring games, you know, go out and just take a flyer. Just throw him in your lineup, see what happens.
Yeah, last year I remember he's just a good red zone guy. Like when they get close, they're looking from the red zone. That's a good offense. They're going to score some points. So, I mean, to have him potentially, yeah, look for him.
And by the way, Pup said pick him up.
Yeah, Pups approved of that one.
So
any other tight ends or no?
Nah, I don't think there's really much touchdown. At the quarterback position, they have Blake Bortles at number 1.
I think we probably agree on this. I think our number 1 quarterback would be Jameis Winston.
Yeah, the number 1 quarterback I paid Jameis Winston is. I mean, if you look at what Fitzpatrick did, half of what Fitzpatrick did, it was out of necessity. Like, yeah, he was playing good, but he had to play good because the defense couldn't stop anybody. You know, I think they're just going to be in shootout after shootout. You know, last year I did Jameis's numbers, and he was on pace for over 5,000 yards and is healthy. The games he actually played healthy, it was 11 games. Fitzpatrick was on pace for over 5,000 yards. If you look at his numbers, Winston came in a half. You know, he threw 2 picks, showed a little bit of rust, but he was 14 for 18, I believe, for 150 and a touchdown.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't.
It was right around there. I think he's someone where, honestly, I'm grabbing him in every league, and he's going to be someone I kind of ride through with, just because they have a money schedule going forward. They come back in week 6, and I think he has a good matchup right off the bat.
Yeah, they play the Falcons. So yeah, he'll get that bye. He pretty much gets 2 weeks to prepare. Now he's finally back with the team. He gets 2 weeks to prepare for the Falcons, who, if you heard us when we do break down the matchups, we're always talking about if you're playing the Falcons, you're dialing everyone up. So I definitely think Jameis Winston comes out. You would think, you know, his former first overall pick, you would think he's going to want to come out, you know, make a statement like, hey, I'm back. Like, you guys were doubting me. You're writing me off. You think Fitzpatrick was going to take my job. Like, I'm here. He's got the weapons. He has a supporting cast. So that should be a shootout. Falcons and Bucks, both those defenses are terrible. I'd probably say start everybody minus the Buccaneers running backs in that matchup. So.
Yeah. Looking at the top 5 next, I think the 2 I would go with next would be either Mariota or Derek Carr, depending on your preference.
Yeah, Mariota, Derek Carr, either one of those guys. It's just
there's so many quarterbacks this year.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done some numbers to give you guys an example. There's 17 quarterbacks that are on pace for over 4,000 yards right now. Yeah. Last year there was 8. And there's I think it's 10 or 11 quarterbacks on pace for over 4,400 yards. So there's just quarterbacks galore. So it's almost like, hey, you know, if you have a good quarterback, you know, maybe grab Mariota, Winston, Carr, you know, and kind of play a matchup game and have 2 solid quarterbacks to where, you know, hey, I'm going to play a little bit of the matchups here. You know, Mariota showed his upside. He last week threw for 350, 2 touchdowns, right? And he also ran for 47 yards and another touchdown. So he has that ability with his legs, and that was against Philly's defense too.
Yeah.
And Philly's defense it's no slouch. So, you know, he showed his upside. Derek Carr, he's been throwing for a ton of yardage. He finally put the touchdowns into play last week. And, you know, these 2 guys are coming into new offenses. So maybe it was a little bit of a transition period to where, hey, you can't really expect a quarterback, you know, week 1 to come out with a new system, new offense, new regime, new coaching, and just go and light the world on fire. But, you know, it looks like maybe they're taking a few weeks, but they're pulling it together. So, you know, these could be some quarterbacks, you know, who have good week-to-week value depending on the matchups going forward.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Yeah, Mariota is available in 80% of leagues. Carr's available in like 50% of leagues. Dalton's available in 50% of leagues. Interesting stat for Dalton. I think since week 3 of last year when Laser took over, he's thrown the 3rd most touchdowns in the NFL. And that's, you know, including talking about Brady, talking about Rodgers, everyone. So the 3rd most touchdowns. I mean, that's a good offense. Dalton's a guy you could pick up too, especially if you're just trying to stream quarterbacks. Maybe you pick up like a Dalton in a car, you know, and you just matchup base them, you know, every week, you know, whoever has the better matchup. So
yeah, and they both play in divisions that have some crappy defenses. So yeah, I mean, that could be a good strategy for sure. You know, the other 2 they mentioned is Blake Bortles and Trubisky. I don't know if I'm buying into Trubisky after just 1 week.
Yeah,
I think he's more of a wait and see for me. But like I said, I don't want to sort of write the guy off of 3 games. Same situation with Mariota and Carr. He's got a whole new regime, a whole new offense, a whole new playbook to learn. You know, he had an off season, but now he's putting it on the field. So this is an elite defense. So I think they might go back to running the ball possibly a little more. But he's a wait and see for me. I'm not dropping a good quarterback or a good player to pick up Trubisky at this point. But if he lights it up for another week, then it's like, okay, maybe we should take him serious if he does it again. But as of right now, he's kind of someone I'm keeping there, but not, I'm not dropping like a solid wide receiver 4 to pick up Trubisky or a solid wide receiver 3 or RB3 to pick him up.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, good for the kid. He had a good game, best game of his career, his young career. But I'm not wasting any fab. I'm not wasting any of my priorities on Trubisky. So let me ask you a question right here. So you're looking for a quarterback. You go to the waiver wire. You got Winston, Derek Carr, Andy Dalton, and Mariota. How would you rate those? Where'd you rank those for?
What were the names?
Andy Dalton, Derek Carr, Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston.
I think I would go Dalton first because he's available to play right away. Winston second. I kind of like Derek Carr's match. For those guys, it's kind of more of like I think it's team dependent. Like if you need someone right away, look at who has the best matchup next week.
Yeah.
If you already have one good quarterback, then look at, okay, who has the best long term for me? Because I believe Winston probably has the highest upside of the 4. So he's more of like, if I already have like a Matt Ryan and I'm just looking for a second quarterback, it's like I know I'm going to start Matt Ryan next week. I'll stash Jameis Winston, so I have 2 quarterbacks. But if it's like, hey, I have a quarterback who has a tough matchup, and I need to start someone this week. Look at the 3 and look at who you think has the best matchup going into this week, because I think all 3 can relatively play at a high ceiling given the matchup that week.
Yeah, Andy Dalton. I can't believe he's available in 50% of leagues. QB 12 right now. So I mean, go get him. Even if he's your backup, like you said, maybe you grab him and you grab someone else, matchup based. I'm a big guy where sometimes I'll double QB it and I'll just play the matchups. If I don't have a stud like Breeze, Brady, Rodgers, one of those guys, like I'll pick up 2 quarterbacks and I'll matchup base them. So
yeah, I mean, even some of the studs at this point of the year. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, he's quarterback I think 10 or 11. Russell Wilson, quarterback 13, 14. I mean, these guys aren't performing up to where they are right now. So don't be afraid to pick up another quarterback and maybe let Aaron Rodgers' knee get healthy, and play the right matchups with someone, or maybe. Don't be afraid to start maybe if you have a Matt Ryan and Russell Wilson, like if Russell Wilson's, that offense, he's a second half guy. He always is. Maybe if it's a tough matchup on the road, don't be afraid to start Matt Ryan over Russell Wilson, stuff like that.
For sure. Any defenses you think about streaming? I mean, I guess we could talk about that. I don't necessarily wouldn't use any of my waiver priority.
Yeah, I would just look
defense.
at who's playing Buffalo next week.
That's probably a trend. Who's playing Buffalo?
Let's see who is playing Buffalo this next week. Looks like Tennessee. Tennessee would probably be my number 1 streaming option.
That would probably be good. Tennessee's defense is actually really good. So
they've been holding some good offenses down.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I definitely like that. It's a good stream right there. Yeah, Tennessee's defense.
Like I have a low waiver priority, so I'm not working my way back up to the front. So I'll use it every week. So I'm gonna burn a waiver priority. I'm gonna drop Green Bay and pick up Tennessee.
Okay.
In a league, that's kind of just how it's like. If I'm not the number 1 or 2 or 3 spot, I'm gonna burn my waiver priority every week for a defense. At that point.
Streaming it, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll touch on some more matchups like Tyler said, but that'd probably be off the bat the number 1 defense I'm looking at right now. There's some decent matchups too, but that's for sure a solid matchup right there.
For sure, sounds good. All right, guys. Well, yeah, just make sure you put those waivers in before tomorrow. They go through tomorrow night, and then just listen to the next episode. We're gonna break down the games that we just played this week, and then we're going to talk about the next matchups, week 5 matchups coming up. So thanks for listening. Appreciate it. Listen, Instagram, Average Bros, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. Average Bros, fantasy
just listen
football.
to the episode before and let Mike.
Mike knows all that stuff.
Seconds.
He's the scientist. We don't have the scientist here right now,
Give
so
the
we don't even know
pass
what
on,
we're doing. Yeah,
I'm just a trainee. I ain't got my degree.
we're fake scientists. We're like movie actor scientists.
And
He's
going
like,
forward, we'll have a little more loose format on this, but we were just trying to pump through because we were time constricted and give you guys our waiver wire opinions and quick hits. So. Yeah, check us out on Instagram. All our tags are on there. And yeah, that's it for the waiver wire for this week.
all right. Thanks for listening. Take care.
All right, we out.
That was pretty quick. Yeah.